You know those characters in Marvel Cosmic Invasion that no one really cared about at first, but after the updates became true legends within the game? Well, some heroes and villains received buffs so insane that they completely changed how you play them, and even shifted the entire meta. Today, we're checking out the 10 characters who improved the most with the updates. And I'm warning you, number 1 underwent such a massive transformation that he feels like a brand new character. I'm Mary, and let's get this list started.
Don't need the old spider sense to figure out there's trouble downtown.
Watch out, these bugs have been sent by Annihilus himself.
Opening the list is Spider-Man. And the most curious thing is that his improvement didn't come from a direct damage or combo buff, but from something more invisible: readability and environmental interaction. Those adjustments to captions and how the game registers who did what in stages with conveyor belt bombs change the character much more than it seems at first glance. Before, playing a Spidey was stylish, but the game often failed to properly reward you for what you actually did on screen, especially in vertical stages full of interactive objects. One of the key points was the fix for credit on assembly line bombs, those conveyor belt bombs you drop on enemies or the environment to earn scores and bonuses. The patch adjusted the instigator logic, ensuring that the character who threw the enemy or triggered the object is actually the one who receives credit for the explosion. For Spider-Man, who spends his time throwing enemies upward, air kicking, and using the scenery as an extension of his combo, this means the game finally recognizes his acrobatic style as a concrete result in score and rewards. In practice, this changes the flow of vertical stages significantly, such as sections filled with conveyor belts and industrial traps. Before, you could pull off a beautiful play, knock a group toward the bombs, and when the tally came, it felt like the game forgot you were the one who set the scene. Now, when Spidey engages a web swing, tosses an enemy onto the line, and everything explodes in a chain, you see the score rising and get that feedback that the risk of exposing yourself in the air was actually worth it. Another important change is the sense of readability amidst the chaos, both visually and in terms of feedback. The caption fix for Spider-Man's lines after the Annihilus fight helps not to lose the character's narrative timing, but more importantly, the game as a whole is communicating better what is happening on screen, from hit confirms to mission challenges involving web swinging. When you're hanging, dodging projectiles, and trying to align bombs, any extra clarity makes a difference in the confidence to keep playing aggressively. The result is that Spider-Man, who already had absurd mobility, now has a real incentive to abuse that mobility in gadget-filled scenarios. Instead of being stuck on the ground trying to do the basics, you are rewarded for thinking vertically, using web kicks to reposition enemies directly into traps and turning the map into part of your combo. It's the kind of adjustment that doesn't change the kit itself, but makes the kit finally talk to the level design and the scoring system. Personally, the feeling now is that Spidey went from just a stylish C tier to a much more satisfying character for runs focused on technique and score attack. He still isn't a raw damage monster like a Phoenix, but if you enjoy playing pretty, abusing aerial mobility, and using every bomb, object, and platform to your advantage, these fixes transform Spider-Man into a much more gratifying choice, especially in vertical stages where the environment is practically a web playground. In 9th place, we have Storm, and man, what a difference the patch made for her. Before the update, playing with the Weather Goddess was an exercise in patience and faith, because sometimes it seemed like enemies were in 2 different dimensions depending on whether you were the host or the guest player. The desync was real. Hurricanes hit nothing. Lightning went through a vacuum, and you swore you were controlling the field, but the other player saw a completely different scene. Now, with the network adjustment, Storm is finally what she was always meant to be, a precise and majestic controller of climatic chaos. The patch didn't just fix the desync, it refined how her weather effects are replicated among players. This means that when you create that giant hurricane to sweep up a group of enemies, everyone in the online session sees exactly the same result. No more of that embarrassing, "wait, where did the guy I trapped go?" moment. This changes everything, especially in matches where timing is essential to lock down hordes or keep bosses inside a constant damage area. Playing with Storm now conveys confidence, and she finally feels like a true cooperative character. The impact of this on multiplayer dynamics is huge. Storm was always intended as a zone control character, but before it was frustrating to use her in co-op because her tornadoes became a lottery. After the update, she became essential in compositions that rely on coordination. You say, "I'm lifting the group on the left," release the hurricane, and this time it actually hits for everyone. This made her a perfect partner for area of effect or AoE attack characters like Nova or Miss Marvel, who can now synchronize ultimates without the fear of attacking thin air. There is also an aesthetic factor that makes a difference. Her power animations and particles were optimized so the game would run better even with all the atmospheric effects happening at once. You feel the weather responding to your control. Thunder, fog, high winds, everything is sharper and without that feeling of lag or stuttering. It's as if the game itself stopped fighting against the scale of Storm's powers, allowing the visual spectacle to finally keep up with the gameplay efficiency. Overall, Storm didn't change in raw damage or base mechanics, but the change in experience was massive. Before, she felt like a buggy character that sometimes works. Now, she's a reliable strategic tool, and it's beautiful to watch. The feeling of summoning a hurricane and seeing everything and everyone react consistently gives you that dose of power that was always a promise, but never delivered until this patch. For me, Storm rose from a fun but frustrating character to one of the most elegant and satisfying choices in co-op. She shines when the team coordinates, when there's synergy between control areas and damage, and the game finally does justice to the idea of manipulating the weather to your advantage. This balance between technique and spectacle earned Storm a well-deserved 9th place. And you can bet if future updates continue this way, she still has room to climb. In 8th place, we have the Silver Surfer. And look, this is a classic case of a character that always had too much power for the game itself to handle. Since the launch of Marvel Cosmic Invasion, the Surfer was intended as an end-game reward, a sort of trophy for the player who reached the highest level. But in practice, what happened? He crashed everything. Literally. The final stages, like Fort Galactus and the fight against Master Mold, turned into a Russian roulette of crashes and performance drops. It was frustrating, because the character is visually one of the most impressive things in the game. It's just that the brilliance was accompanied by instability. With memory fixes and specific optimizations for PS5 and Switch, the Silver Surfer can finally breathe in the middle of the cosmic chaos. These improvements reduced RAM consumption caused by full-screen energy waves, something that previously overwhelmed the game engine and froze the particles. Now, he can unleash that whole-screen combo without the game imploding along with it. And the best part? This didn't come with visual cuts or effect downgrades. The patch was smart enough to optimize without pruning the visual spectacle. The difference is striking, especially in arcade modes and longer challenges. The Surfer relied heavily on fluidity between movements and transitions between his cosmic attacks and projectile deflections. With stability adjusted, his rhythm became consistent. Before, it was common to see small stutters between one attack and another, the kind of thing that broke combo timing and left you vulnerable. Now, playing with him feels like a dream. Movements flow, the energy field follows the command, and you truly feel in total control of cosmic power. Another positive point is how this affected endgame balancing. The Silver Surfer has always had an absurdly powerful kit, with attacks that cover practically the entire screen. This, in an unstable scenario, made him unviable due to bugs, but now, with polished performance, he fits perfectly into the late-game meta. The player can finally explore the character's full potential without fear of the game simply giving up on working. And that, let's face it, completely changes the relationship with him. It's also interesting to see how the Surfer has now become a real option for those playing in co-op. Before, no one wanted to risk using him in long matches because any multiple energy explosion could cause collective lag. Now, the game holds up, and the Silver Surfer truly shines when working together with other Cosmic Synergy characters like Adam Warlock and Nova without crashing or tanking performance. It's as if the character has finally been freed from his own grandiosity. Playing as the Silver Surfer after this patch is almost like rediscovering the character. He was always a technical Colossus, but now he's a functional Colossus. This late-stage stability transformed him from a buggy legend into a true cosmic star ready to fight among the greats. And personally, nothing is more satisfying than releasing that screen-filling energy attack, seeing everything running smooth, and thinking, now we're talking. The Surfer is back to surf the meta. Beta Ray Bill is the kind of case where a simple technical fix completely changes how the character is felt in the game. Before the hotfix, Bill was that hero who seemed promising in the first missions, but as the campaign progressed, he started losing steam in a way no one could quite explain. The bug where stat upgrades didn't apply until returning to the main menu was the invisible villain of the story. And for a character that relies on strength progression to dominate the late game, this was practically a limitation sentence. With the hotfix, the game finally corrected the issue and started applying attribute upgrades in real time during missions. It seems like a small detail, but for Beta Ray Bill, it was a rebirth. Now, every point invested in strength, defense, or resistance is immediately reflected in the gameplay. You feel the character getting heavier in his strikes, the impacts of Stormbreaker feel deeper, and enemies start reacting as they should by being crushed with every cosmic hammer blow. The sense of progression finally lives up to the character's pedigree. This change also rescued Bill's identity as a scaling warrior, a character that grows alongside the player. He was always designed to shine in long sessions. The more time spent in combat, the more dangerous he becomes. Except that before, the bug completely broke this growth curve. It was like playing with a superhero stuck at his base level. Now, throughout a single run, you actually feel the power increasing, and the impact of this on gameplay is immediate and satisfying. In addition to the stat fix, there were subtle visual feedback adjustments that make the upgrades more noticeable. Stormbreaker's glow, for example, changes intensity as power grows, and impact effects became more defined. This creates an emotional link between the character's growth and the player. It's the kind of detail that doesn't appear in the patch notes, but totally changes the immersion. You see and hear the progress happening, and that moment of charging the final blow before a boss now has a weight worthy of a warrior god. This fix also shifted build balance. Before, investing in strength felt indifferent, since the game simply didn't apply it correctly. Now that the system responds immediately, builds focused on melee damage finally have room to shine. Bill becomes a real option for those who enjoy a brutal and direct style without depending on cosmic synergies or external buffs. He's back to being the aggressive tank that tears through hordes and leaves the ground shaking behind Stormbreaker. In the end, the hotfix transformed Beta Ray Bill into everything he promised from the start, an unstoppable force in constant growth. It wasn't a numbers buff, it was a structural buff, the kind that changes how the character is perceived throughout the entire campaign. Playing with him now is rewarding from start to finish, and seeing the power scale in real time is almost poetic. 7th place is more than deserved because what was once a giant nerfed by a bug is now, finally, the cosmic titan fans always wanted to see in action. Rocket Raccoon is one of the characters who benefited most from recent fixes. Before the patch, playing as Rocket was basically balancing adrenaline and despair. You caused massive destruction, but one wrong touch and you'd turn into cosmic dust. He was always the perfect example of a glass cannon, but the problem was that the game itself didn't help. Enemy hitboxes were misaligned, and many grabs would end up hitting Rocket during the very first animation frame, causing absurd and practically unavoidable damage. Now, with collision fixes, this little weapons maniac finally has a fair chance to blow everything up without being one-shotted in the middle of the chaos. The adjustment to enemy hitboxes during grabs was a blessing. Before, the game registered the impact even before the animation was complete, which made enemy combos catch Rocket out of nowhere, especially when he was using recoil attacks with the bazooka. With the patch, collisions only count from the actual moment of contact, which gives much more room to reposition or use dodges with the right timing. This completely changes his gameplay pace. Instead of feeling like a Russian roulette character, he now has technical and rewarding gameplay, where survival depends on precision and reflexes, not luck. Another major improvement, and perhaps the most underrated, was in ammo reading. Visual and sound feedback is now clearer, and the reload indicator responds at the exact moment of the command. Before, many people died simply because they thought they still had ammo and discovered, the hard way, that they were clicking into a void. This made Rocket seem inconsistent, especially in high-pressure moments. With the update, resource management became smooth, which reinforces his identity as a fast-paced character, a mix of strategy and impulse. These changes also made Rocket a much more viable option in cooperative modes. He was always great for offensive support, but the unpredictability of hitboxes and faulty ammo management hindered any attempt at synergy. Now, he fits perfectly into teams focused on DPS and control, serving as both a long-range destroyer and a combo initiator with his tactical bombs. Played alongside characters like Iron Man or Black Panther, the result is pure explosive synergy. Literally. What I like most about this new version of Rocket is how the game finally rewards the skilled player. For a long time, he felt like a fun but overly punishing character. One tiny mistake and the match was gone. Now, he still requires attention, but he gives you real tools to play on the edge without suffering unfairly. What was once a constant risk has turned into a rewarding challenge, and that makes all the difference for those who enjoy the "if I hit it, everything explodes" style. Rocket Raccoon post-patch is the kind of character that makes you smile while everything blows up around you. He keeps the same chaotic charisma, but now with a solid technical foundation, finally matching the arsenal he carries. He's fast, destructive, and for the first time, reliable. And honestly, seeing this little cosmic rodent shine without being a victim of his own explosions is one of the most satisfying victories of this new phase of the game. In fifth place, our dear Tony Stark, Iron Man, finally received the adjustment that put him back at the top of the game. Before the updates, playing as him was a mix of frustration and wasted potential. The ammo system for ranged attacks was inconsistent, and the parry, which should have been one of the most elegant mechanics in his kit, rarely worked the right way. It was common to hit the perfect timing and still not get that long-awaited infinite ammo reload. Now, after the patch, Iron Man is flying on another level. His weapons work like clockwork, and the feeling of control finally matches the fantasy of being a billionaire genius controlling a lethal arsenal. The main fix came in the synchronization of visual and sound feedback. Before, the HUD didn't accurately track ammo consumption, and that broke the combat rhythm. Today, every shot, every reload, and every parry comes with immediate feedback. Lights on the visors, glow on the armor's hands, and even the sound of the arc reactor reacting to impact. All of this reinforces clarity and fluidity, giving the player an instant read on what is happening. It's as if Stark fixed his own HUD within the game, and this sense of engineering applied to gameplay makes everything much more satisfying. But the big game changer was the parry fix. Now, when you hit that perfect block, the temporary infinite ammo mode is activated accurately, without bugs and without delays. This completely changes the zoning dynamic, that strategy of controlling space and keeping enemies at a distance. Iron Man always had the ideal kit for this, but technical consistency was missing. Now, you can orchestrate entire stages by releasing plasma bursts and continuous lasers without losing your rhythm. It's the kind of adjustment that rewards skill, reflexes, and strategy. Another interesting consequence is how this made the character more unpredictable in PvE and PvP combat. In PvE, he became a horde-clearing machine. The combination of infinite ammo and wide shots makes him the terror of open stages. In PvP, he gained an element of constant pressure. The enemy never knows if Stark will go for the parry to reset ammo or maintain distance while wearing them down with surgical precision. This versatility transforms him into a balanced character, but with dominance potential when piloted by someone experienced. Additionally, the developers took the patch as an opportunity to slightly adjust the energy cost of special attacks, which made the cycle between attack, defense, and reload more fluid. It's clear how the character became more alive. When Iron Man takes the field now, you feel the power, the weight of the armor, and the impact of the decisions you make. He's no longer just the tech character of the roster, he's a tactical force that requires execution and field awareness, which makes him incredibly fun to watch and play. To me, the most amazing thing is that Iron Man, with these changes, finally delivers the real fantasy of being the Tony Stark from the comics and movies, someone who relies on technique and perfect timing to maintain the advantage in combat. That feeling that your success depends on precision and preparation is what makes this character so gratifying to master. From initial chaos to clean and calculated executions, Iron Man has become a true maestro of destruction, and 5th place on this top list is totally deserved. In 4th place, we have Phyla Vell, and honestly, it was only a matter of time before she finally shined. Before the updates, her biggest problem was purely technical. The continuous cosmic damage from her sword simply wasn't being registered correctly. It was bizarre to see the visual effect happening, cosmic particles burning the enemy, but the game didn't properly count the actual damage, especially in multiplayer sessions. This made Phyla seem weaker than she really was, and took away much of the satisfaction of seeing an enemy dissolve under the power of pure energy. With the new patch, everything changed. Now the damage over time, DOT, from the cosmic sword is correctly registered and displayed for both the player and the team in online matches. This means the game finally shows Phyla Vell's true strength, and the player receives visual and numerical feedback from that constant damage ping. It seems like just a visual fix, but it's deeper than that, because the DOT is now synchronized with the cooldown system. In other words, you know exactly when the damage has ended and the right moment to re-enter combat or trigger another sequential attack. This consistency completely changed the way to play her. Before, by not knowing if the enemy was still under the effect of the cosmic burn, the player ended up playing in the dark, wasting specials or retreating too early. Now you can plan ability rotations with surgical precision. The continuous damage effect creates a clear window to transition between offense and defense, and the result is a much more effective DPS. In longer matches, especially against bosses like Master Mold, this predictability allows you to maintain the rhythm without losing a single second of damage. It's also important to highlight how much this fix improved her role in cooperative teams. Phyla has always had a hybrid vibe between offensive support and controller, but with the DOT working properly, she can sustain pressure with more constancy and stability, providing damage coverage while other characters focus on finishers. She went from an unreliable damage filler to an anchor point in any long-term composition. Now it's common to see players combining her Cosmic Flame with Storm's area control or Captain Marvel's blasts to maximize damage uptime. And you can't ignore how much this also transformed the feeling of impact in gameplay. Seeing the cosmic glow of the sword cut through the horizon, and seconds later, enemies literally disintegrating with the final tick of the DOT is incredibly gratifying. The game now rewards the patience of the player who knows Phyla's timing. It's the kind of fix that moves a character out of technical limbo and into a strategic spotlight. Her sword, which once felt too light for a hero of such absurd power, now has weight, consequence, and rhythm. For me, this change put Phyla-Vell where she always belonged, among the most technical and rewarding characters in Marvel Cosmic Invasion. She's not just a brilliant cosmic warrior, she's a specialist in timing, control, and efficiency. The patch didn't give her a new power, it gave her something much more valuable: clarity. And when you understand her rhythm and play within this new precision, you realize that fourth place here isn't just a position. It's a long overdue consecration of a character that finally works as well as she looks. With the bronze medal, we have Wolverine. And honestly, this is a classic case of a good character that just needed a revision from the game itself. Before the update, the grab and slash, that iconic move where Logan grabs the enemy and tears into them with his claws in a continuous attack, was a tragedy waiting to happen. Sometimes the enemy would simply become an intangible shadow in the middle of the animation, or worse, Wolverine would get stuck, frozen in midair, or caught in the target's model. It was frustrating, especially for those who like to play aggressively and maintain a constant flow of strikes. But with the patch, everything changed. Now, grab and slash is smooth, visceral, and most importantly, reliable. This fix gave Wolverine back what defines his essence: rhythm. The character is pure aggression, made to throw himself into the middle of the fray and shred enemies with raw precision. Without the risk of glitching, the player can flow from grab to combo, from combo to special, without those weird pauses that broke total DPS. The difference in feel is enormous. Now, every sequence connects naturally, and the combat experience returns to what it was always meant to be: an insane rush of speed, fury, and absolute control of the battlefield. Additionally, the indirect fix to enemy hit stun during the grab improved the character's efficiency against hordes. Before, the bug caused targets to recover control too early, which broke the offensive cycle and left you vulnerable in the middle of the action. Now, the paralysis time is well calibrated, allowing Wolverine to keep the aggressor under dominion until the end of the sequence. In terms of DPS, this is a massive leap. He's back to being the predator who gives the enemy no room to breathe. The impact of this is even more notable in boss fights. Wolverine always had the potential to tear through health bars, but it was hard to sustain prolonged damage without bugs sabotaging his animations. Now he can engage grab and slash without fear, and the fluidity of the cuts transforms him into a monster of consistency. You see the boss shaking on screen while Logan simply doesn't stop. It's that feeling of refined savagery that defines the character. The fix brought back the strategic brutality that was lost. Another thing worth highlighting is how this fluidity impacts the general flow of anyone playing him. Wolverine is a character that works on instinct, on reflexes. So when the game flows, the player enters that state of trance, where everything feels natural: strike, dodge, grab, slash. Before, the glitching broke that immersion entirely. Now it's the opposite. You feel part of the violence itself. The gameplay is visceral, but at the same time smooth and responsive, and the result is combat that carries an adrenaline rush hard to match. In the end, this technical adjustment gave Wolverine his soul back. He didn't lose any of his brutality, but he gained something he was sorely missing: confidence. Now every strike has weight, every grab has purpose, and every slash follows without interruption. Playing as him has turned into a dance of precise and uncontrollable destruction, and it's impossible not to smile seeing the patch transform what was once irritation into pure satisfaction. Third place here isn't just deserved, it's a late apology from the game to one of the characters most faithful to the idea of pure melee combat. She-Hulk is that classic case of a character who always had the right kit, but was sabotaged by the game itself. She is entirely built around grapples, grabbing, spinning, and throwing enemies like they were rag dolls. Except that before the patch, this came with an absurd price. Out of nowhere, she would freeze mid-animation, stay planted on the ground with a frozen enemy, and you'd become an easy target on high difficulty. It was very frustrating because you'd do everything right, read the field, pick the target, and the game would let you down. After the fixes, the difference is clear. She-Hulk's grab and slam chain now flows continuously without those strange breaks in the middle of the animation. You grab, spin, throw, cancel, chain another grab, everything smoothly, and most importantly, safely. This restores her identity as the queen of crowd control. On maps full of enemies, you feel like you dominate the space. One goes to the ground, another into the wall, another flies toward a group, and the best part? Without the constant fear of getting stuck in the middle of the mess. The spinning throw, in particular, was a move that had everything to be a signature, but ended up becoming a joke because of the bugs. Against Annihilus, it was especially ugly. Visual glitches, poorly registered hitboxes, enemies flickering or teleporting on screen. With the patch, this move finally gained the weight it deserved. Visually, it's clean and legible, and in terms of gameplay, it's a powerful tool for repositioning bosses and clearing surrounding groups. Now, when you spin the enemy and throw, you feel the impact on the screen and see the direct result in the health bar and field control. Another thing that changed with this consistency is the confidence to use She-Hulk on higher difficulties. Before, she felt like a risk. If the game decided to bug a grapple, you took a heavy punishment. Now, she is one of the most reliable characters for those who enjoy melee combat, controlling the fight with their bare hands. You can jump into the middle of the horde, grab the high-priority target, and use the enemy itself as a weapon, knowing the animation won't leave you stuck in a blind spot. This completely changes the risk-reward sensation. In co-op, she's become a utility monster. With grapples working properly, She-Hulk creates perfect windows for allies to detonate with area damage. Holding a strong enemy while a Silver Surfer or Iron Man fills the screen with explosions is now a consistent strategy, not a gamble. She became that pillar of control around which the whole team can rotate. You feel like you're the center of gravity of the fight, literally throwing problems away. This set of fixes transformed She-Hulk into the ideal version of herself. Aggressive, reliable, and absurdly fun. No more losing runs because of a grapple bug. Today, every throw has purpose, every slam has weight, and every spin counts. She doesn't just deserve the second place among those who improve the most. She is practically a symbol of how a character can be reborn when the game stops getting in the way and starts keeping up with what the kit always promised to deliver. Reaching first place, and with all merit, we have Venom, the symbiotic monster who finally became what he always promised to be, a true bruiser to be respected. Before the fixes, playing as him was a roller coaster of frustration. Venom was absurdly strong on paper, but bugs turned his power into a time bomb. All it took was hitting a parry during symbiote pounce to freeze in place, or using Venom Bite and losing all super armor instantly, leaving you exposed in the middle of the brawl. It was like piloting a beast without control, powerful but unpredictable. With the update, everything fell into place. Venom's super armor system is now solid and consistent, allowing him to absorb damage without interfering with the flow of his combos. The parry mechanic has been completely aligned with the animation cycle, ensuring the character can counterattack without the risk of freezing mid-strike. The result is much more stable gameplay, where Venom finally behaves like the aggressive tank he should have been from the start. You get into the fight, take a hit, strike back immediately, and still gain space to keep pressuring the field. The most noticeable difference is how Venom now maintains pressure. Before, he lost rhythm easily. Any bug would break the sequence and turn the symbiotic monster into a static target. Now, combos connect with absurd precision. Symbiote Pounce chains perfectly into heavy attacks, and Venom Bite not only keeps super armor active, but also helps reinforce field control. When you command him, you feel the mass and weight in the animations. It's real melee combat, full of impact and continuity. These improvements also raised the character's tactical potential in cooperative modes. Venom has become the ideal frontline for any team. He holds aggro, takes the damage, and buys time for ranged characters like Rocket or Iron Man to clear from behind. The stability of the symbiotic armor allows him to withstand even boss attacks without losing his rhythm. The whole team benefits from the simple fact that Venom doesn't freeze anymore, because when he stopped, the entire defensive line collapsed. Now, it's the opposite. While he's on the field, everything else flows smoothly. Another point worth mentioning is the presence factor. Venom was always a character with an intimidating aura, but the patch gave life to that imposing nature. The heavy sound of his strikes, the symbiosis particles expanding, and his continuous movement create a sense of power that isn't just aesthetic, it's tactile. You feel like you're controlling a primitive but disciplined force. The current Venom is the perfect balance between brutality and control, and every fight with him feels like a catharsis, especially now that nothing interrupts the moment. Seeing Venom at the top of this list is more than fair. He went from a broken, inconsistent, and frustrating character to a functional and rewarding colossus. The patch didn't just fix the errors, it freed Venom from the instability that kept him from shining. Today, he is what he should have been from day one, the brutal rhythm setter, the tank that bites, tears, and dominates the field without fear. And when you land that pounce followed by bite and feel the impact echo on the screen, it's impossible not to think, this is how Venom should have been all the time.